Hi everyone, I'm Agarwal, very excited to be here. Thank you for organizing this. And I'll talk about some of the works that I do over the last 10, 12 years in the intersection of art and technology. And I often kind of ground it in this metaphorical phase, do wires dream of veins? And it's a question that I think the art practice in general explores. To give context of where I come from, so these are some of the spaces I've had the good fortune of being associated with. Media Lab was mentioned earlier, and I happen to study with Professor Ishii also, and the idea of poetic technology obviously was something that he spoke of very fondly, and over the years through some residencies. These are some of the art practices to begin with. Early on in my art days around 2014-15, I created this work called a flying pantograph, which is a drone as kind of an augmented sense of the body acting as an end effector to create artwork, and this kind of computational layer between them and how that kind of reimagines a sense of self. Then kind of moving to more AI-based works, this was a work called Tandem where you start doodling something, and this is when Deep Dream had just come out around 2015, and the AI kind of imagines an output on top of that, which is creative output in a certain sense. This was actually a work that I showed at Ars Electronica in 2017. This is a writing system, so you start writing something, here human is, and then the pen kind of starts being controlled by this machine system. So there is a magnetic system under the table, you hold the pen and your hand is moved around. This I developed during a residency in Japan, and then I made a new version of it very recently with new AI tools, which with the human hand now completely out of the equation and the pen just writing on its own. And it really produces some interesting outputs because I trained this recurrent neural network on books of poetry and philosophy. This is the next work called Landing Page. It's a virtual reality work. So this is from inside this kind of VR headset, which is a poppy plantation where everything is, the space is constructed of videos, which are advertisement videos on which most money was spent on Facebook, kind of alluding to this aspect of data colonization. This is another work called Masked Reality. It's an interactive work with a surveillance camera. You stand in front of it and you see yourself as a Thayyam and a Kathakali performance form. These are two art forms from Kerala in India. And I've had a social history of kind of caste segregation between who gets to perform these, and using technology to try and fuse them together. This is a large LED animated AI-based work that I did called The Garden of Digital Delights. It references the Garden of Earthly Delights, but kind of talking of places of leisure or gardens as spaces of digital, social media, YouTube spaces, etc., and how kind of we are kind of sucked into those spaces of leisure, but they also have politics of their own. There's a certain kind of new form of like direction that I'm exploring through some new works, which is to think of like now at the state of that AI is, we've kind of automated to some extent knowledge labor, creative labor with tools like Midjourney, Nano Banana. I'm saying it in a very like repressed format. But then what happens of spiritual labor, right? So thinking about like ways in which the idea of spirituality might progress through the years. So this is an installation which is actually exhibiting at BIC currently, which is a very Indian ritual of Havan, where you drop offerings into a fire kund, here replaced by a robotic arm dropping offerings of data and climate resources. This was during a residency that I did last year at the Art Futures, and kind of got really interested by these prayer beads that are very commonly found at that space. And I started thinking of this kind of new age idea of rituals or meditation, right? Where we are almost with the same kind of action scrolling our phones as we would scroll prayer beads. So I kind of started creating digital counterparts of these. So these are systems that are rotating, meditating on human data with each rotation, kind of analogous to server racks in AI computing data center. And this is another work that I started there, so it's a year-long production that I'm continuing to work on. This digital render of these excavator arms writing the words data and soil. So kind of fitting these lights onto those arms and then creating kind of a choreographed movement of, this is me on the ground. So then I I rented out 3 excavators there to try and test the concept, and then started installing these lights there. This was a lot of fun to do. I never worked with something as Kamya said, we generally on a laptop, so working with an excavator machine was obviously fun. But this is a real video of a real excavator then writing the letter D, and that will transform to the letter S. So what I did is kind of imagine the whole choreography visually, and then spoke to the operators to try and tell them what to do exactly to make these individual letters. And then instead of doing all the 9 excavators to write it together, I then individually kind of recorded these letters D-A, T-A, S-O-I-L, obviously referencing to kind of the extractive nature of data today, as has been with excavators extracting soil, and data is the new soil kind of being a phrasing that a lot of people are starting to talk about. And as I said, the background of doing this was a lot of fun, especially if you get to ride an excavator and kind of learn how these giant machines work, and made some really fun friends. Language was obviously a barrier, but art kind of cut through, I guess. So this was on the outskirts of Riyadh, and now I'm also like parallelly building an indoor version of it, which is with these toy devices, the remote controlled toy JCBs or excavators that you get. So this is a computer render, but this is work in progress in the studio currently. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I also want to call out that a large part of my practice is to engage and do workshops around machine learning, AI, and Shivani is here, who was somewhere there in the workshop, in one of the workshops that I did at NID last year, I think. So yeah, thank you for having me.